and that's Tucker Carlson had a congressperson on his show to talk about January 6th, but it's something that is what I would call the elephant in the room, which is of obvious FBI, or let's just say intelligence, government intelligence forces on the ground during this event, coordinated.
Yeah, I know Black Twitter was calling this out as it was happening. It's one of those things that was like memory hold. But as someone who was on Twitter a lot, Black Twitter was trending. And I remember this as vivid as clear as day. Anyone who's like on Black left politics, we remember this clear as day. When January 6th was going on, bro, that shit was funny. And people were documenting. We were like, bro, look at the cops letting them in. There was all these videos. We were like, bro, the cops are letting these people in. Why they're not calling this? Oh, this is obviously some inside job shit. That wasn't coming from the right. You got to remember. Well, obviously it was.
They knew already.
Right, but there was people on Black left Twitter, and left is like, bro, what the hell is this? You remember the video of the gate opening for them? The National Guard standing down, all this stuff. It was obvious it was some sort of inside plot. And I have tweets showing me saying this. I said this on RBN. It benefits both sides. You had the Republicans that allowed this fake January 6th thing go off. They can say, oh, we fought for the democracy. That's what my senator does. Like Josh Hawley. I stood for our democracy on January 6th. So they like it. Democrats like January 6th because they can fundraise off it. They can run off of it. So it benefited both parties. And the cherry on top of it. Sorry, see, I cut you off. I'll pass it to you.
No. Do you?
Yeah, the cherry on top of all of this is that they used January 6th to expand the police state. So those three combinations, CJ, is where I'm like, this is obviously an inside job. You can't go 3 for 3. These three things benefit the establishment, but you want to tell me this is not an inside job? Get the hell out of here. But I'll pass to you, CJ. I got a lot to say.
And this being an inside job, and I'm glad you said what you said because it jogged my memory about this point. This being an inside job, typically the ruling class is united about an inside job against, in particular, Nick, indigenous people, black and brown people. They're united on that shit when it's time to do an inside job. Nobody's cracking. But when it comes to doing an inside job, in particular against a white population, there's part of the ruling class that's not on board fully with that. And that's where I think you're seeing people with the likes of like Tucker Carlson, people with the likes of the guy that they're going to have on the show. Let me bring it back up, actually, because he actually talks about, I don't know if you've seen this, but he actually talks about several things you just mentioned in your opening intro here. So we're going to probably play about 5 minutes of this. And let me just say this. The overall presentation that I'm delivering here is about the 2024 election, and January 6th is their strategy. So they're connected. Yeah. So there will be a little bit of like election talk in with this entire presentation. It's kind of long, but it's a lot to get through. We're going to touch on the Elise Stefanik video because they have found a way, Nick, to absolutely flip January 6th. Now they're damn near free Mumia Abuja. That's what they're doing about the January 6th.
They're now abolitionists. I know exactly what they're abolitionists now.
Yes. So we'll get to all of that in this presentation. But let's get back to this video. I wanted to start with this. This is an elephant in the room. It's something that I've never been in a conversation with you about January 6th and FBI is not brought up because to me that is just part of the tapestry of the story. Of course. In particular, in the intro video, Nick, when we saw the FBI director, let me rewind it because it's so telling what he says here at the end. Watch this.
It's categorically false.
Did you have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters inside the Capitol on January the 6th prior to the doors being open?
Again, I had to be very careful.
It should be a no. Can you not tell the American people no?
Look at his face.
We did not have confidential human sources dressed as Trump supporters positioned inside the Capitol.
Gentleman's time has expired.
You should not read anything into my...
We should not read anything into you just saying, no, we don't have that, Nick. That's what he's saying. So Your wife comes up to you and say, "Hey, man, do you know whose number this girl's number is right here?" You should not read into anything, wife, that I'm not going to answer this question. You should not read into anything, Nick. That's what he's trying to get us to believe. This is why I always say, don't let this professional managerial class let you believe, as a working class person who doesn't have a college degree or even a high school diploma, that you don't have intelligence. You have human intelligence to understand when somebody's lying to you, man. That's experience in life. It has nothing to do with books. And that's what I'm saying here. We obviously know, and that's the same, the Repnick that is interviewing Christopher Wray is the one that Tucker Carlson brings on the show. So let's play it some more. And just let me know when you want to stop. I'm going to let large parts of it just play all the way through.
Yeah, sure.
Decision not to share information
Director Ray,
confidentially.
gentleman's time has expired.
What a sleazy, repulsive little authoritarian liar Chris Wray is. That's obvious when you watch that tape. The sad part is so few tapes like that exist because so few have confronted him directly and asked questions to which the entire country has a right to know the answer, like that one. Clay Higgins did that. Congressman from Louisiana, Lafayette, joins us in studio. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Tuck.
So that was over a year ago that you asked that question, which is a central question, and you asked it, as I think is appropriate, without any embarrassment at all on behalf of your constituents and the rest of the country. Are you any closer to the answer now?
Well, we're closer to being in a position where we can reveal the answers that we already have. Much of the evidence that we have compiled from investigative effort and over the course of the last couple of years, some offices like my own would have operated in silos of investigative endeavor, have now been able to come together now that we have a Republican majority and we have access to the staff.
So let me just, because it's important that we break down some of it, because he talks in code, or it feels like he's not talking as clear as he can, because he's trying to be not as candid as he can be. But it feels like what he's saying here is that they have more evidence, and it took them having sort of, he said, investigation silos, I guess investigation, meaning they're doing an investigation and he or his group or somebody he knows is doing a separate investigation about January 6th. So to me, that speaks to one part of the ruling class investigating the other part of the ruling class. Kind of tells me not everybody was on board with this sort of operation. So maybe this was sort of a liberal democratic sort of push. We'll see. I'm saying that to see if he's gonna answer that in the rest of this video here.
Of the appropriate investigative committees. And so I sit on the oversight committee, and we Republicans run that committee now, and therefore we control the staff. So when you can magnify the efforts that individual members of Congress have pushed within our own offices, when you can magnify those efforts by the skill and the numbers of staff from the committees, you get a lot of evidence reviewed professionally and aligned and assembled into essentially a case file. And in this case, this is a big file because the involvement of certain actors, you could say deep state actors within the federal government, to set the stage for what happened in J4, 5, and 6, and to entrap thousands of Americans from across the country and lure them into this set stage.
Isn't he saying that there's high level involvement in the planning and construction of this complete psyop of January 6th. That's what I'm reading. Like, I feel like he's talking very technical and very sort of not as descriptive as he can be. Because maybe, you know, some stuff he feels is sensitive and he doesn't want to be too out there, but that's what I'm grasping from what he is saying.
On J4, 5, and 6, the people that were involved in that is quite a large web. So yes, sir, we do have a great deal of evidence compiled, and we're gradually, professionally rolling that evidence out.
So you sort of answered the question right there in larger terms. You just said that elements within the federal government, I assume law enforcement, intel, and military, and I'm using your words, lured Americans to Washington into what you called a trap.
Yes, sir.
So that would, I mean, that's a shocking, and I assume that's a sober conclusion based on the evidence. That's what you're saying.
That would be my sober assessment as an investigator, and I love my country, and I've always been a staunch defender of the thin blue line, and I would proudly count the FBI amongst that number. It's like brothers to me. So to find that level of conspiratorial corruption at the highest levels of the FBI has been very troubling to me as a
sweet summer child. Oh, yeah. You sweet summer child.
So I guess he really believes the thin blue line. But go ahead, Nick. You were going to chime in about that.
So listen to what he just said there, fam. Everything we know with the FBI, they're entrapment programs, right? And this guy has this opinion of Western society that they're the best, right? Look at this guy. How old do you guys think he is? 50? I can't tell. 40, 50? Way older than me. I would say at least 15 years older than me, I think. Right? 15 years older than me. Still a grown-ass child. A child. A mental midget. Someone whose mind has been so propagandized. He worked for the state, the violent state, and he believed that the state is the greatest thing that ever existed. And now at the tender age of 50 or so, he has now realized that the government plots, that the government don't have the best intention of the people. The amount of sweet summer children in this country blows my mind. I see it every single day. And then they have the nerve to call the Chinese people propagandized. They say Russians are propagandized. They say Africans are propagandized. They say all these people are propagandized, as you guys are sweet summer children just now discovering that the FBI and our government is corrupt. You think the largest, most corrupt empire in modern human history is not corrupt, and you think other people is propagandized. Very telling. But go ahead, I'll pass back to you, CJ, so we can get back on track.
Yeah, and to that point, I don't know if he's just a guy who grew up and has been in just spaces where he really believes this. And because I think, I'm not saying this is, I'm just saying there is some white people where until it happens to white people, they don't see the corruption. Like, we've been yelling this about the FBI and law enforcement, but until it happens to them, then they go, "Oh, now you guys are doing it." You get what I'm saying? That's essentially what it feels like. But let's get back to the video.
Also, Malcolm X for white people right now. Now he demonized us when we wanted to challenge the police state. He still does to this day. As someone who considers himself anti-establishment, you see he dropped it even in this interview all the time. The real riots. There was no riots, and I've explained this many times. But it was the police engaging with us. And we had the right to defend ourselves against the police, which many activists did not. Most protesters was peaceful until the police fucked with us. I reported, unlike Tucker and these white identity politics pushers, I was on the ground. Was he on the ground covering George Floyd? I was. You know what I saw in Kansas City? I saw the police tear gassing people who wasn't even part of the protest. They tear gassed children at the park. Meanwhile, Tucker Carlson demonized us. We fought the police state. And now when January 6th happened, these people now, Malcolm X, like, we need to rise up. No, you just demonized us. for doing the same thing you guys are talking about. But go ahead, CJ. And RBN, because we're not going, because we don't care about being platformed by Tucker and shit. We're the only one who's going to call him out for this. We're the only one who call out these quote unquote fake right wing populists who are actually white identity politics pushers. And this is why I covered my last stream. I'm gonna keep pushing it until you guys address this. Their whole politics is white identity politics. Tucker Carlson was for the police state. He was anti-protest when it was black people. They are spreading unfounded conspiracy theories, including Tucker, that George Floyd was on fucking drugs. And okay, let's accept your premise as face value, Tucker. Even if he was on drugs, what gives the police the right to choke him out for that, sir? He says this all the time, but meanwhile, everyone's just hanging out with Tucker. No one gives a shit that Tucker says shit that makes no goddamn sense. This is 2024. Cat Williams said these people cannot allow to lie. So he went from that, from I'm pro cop, cops can allow to put their knee on your neck if you do some drugs. He went from that to now, oh my God, we gotta fucking liberate the January 6th white people. Absurd. But go ahead, CJ. I'm glad that you made this point. It's a point that has to be made. I just found on a little bit. But go ahead, CJ.
Yes, absolutely.
As a man, as a cop. And yet, you follow the evidence wherever it leads. And
yes,
this is what investigators do. So when I asked Christopher Wray that question, for instance, I already knew the answer. I had reviewed compelling evidence that the FBI had assets, human assets, dressed as Trump supporters inside the Capitol prior to the doors being open and the masses allowed in.
He said inside the Capitol. I don't know if people caught that detail. If you didn't understand what he said he's saying FBI already had people dressed up as Trump supporters inside the Capitol before anybody came in.
I knew that the FBI was deeply involved. I'd seen evidence even at that time with that the FBI had embedded themselves into various groups online across the country of Americans who were essentially voicing their concerns and airing their grievances with each other about COVID oppression. And those Americans were targeted by the FBI, almost universally Republicans and largely Trump supporters. But the FBI worked undercover to infiltrate those conversations and become a significant part of those individual Americans' communications. And when you dig into the evidence that we've had revealed through some criminal cases that I've followed and worked with the families of J6 political detainees and Americans that have been persecuted for their involvement in the Capitol that day. And some of that evidence is shockingly reveals that the FBI agents that were operating undercover within the online groups across the country were the first ones to plant the seeds of suggestions of a more radical occupation of the Capitol.
The FBI, informants, agents, whoever were in these online groups, were the first to suggest something more radical than what was originally planned, according to what this guy is saying. But meanwhile, I should say, on CNN with Vivek Ramaswamy, you had Abby Phillips cutting him off when he's just trying to say, hey, we need to find out what's going on, why FBI informs you. You don't have no evidence of that. What are you talking about?
And they were sort of testing the waters of who amongst that group would begin acknowledging that, maybe we should do that. Maybe we should plan for an occupation like that. But if you look at the origins of those conversations, they were started by the FBI undercover guy that was operating inside the group. And then months later, on January 4th, 5th, and 6th. Many of those Americans met for the first time in person when they gathered for the massive rally where American patriots assembled to object to everything that had happened during 2020, the COVID oppression, and the stunning results of what we believe.
I must stop it here. I think this is the second time when he refers to this as COVID oppression. That, I mean, like I'm uh with the people who are against what happened to those people that during COVID. But using words like oppression, like, then what does it mean about oppression? About the Palestinians? Like, if we're able to use that same word, it feels like it's too much.
I just hate how selfish these people are, because I have a ton of criticism of the COVID regime. I know most people who got fucked up by the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the problem is, these are the people who don't care about authoritarianism until it impacts them.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the people I have a lot of anger and disdain towards. Like, these people see a ton of injustice everywhere. They see government crack down on people. They see indigenous people have their free speech rights taken away. And they were silent. They pro-police state, pro-authoritarianism when it comes to black and brown people. But then when it happens to everyone, all of a sudden, these people are like, oh, I'm anti-authoritarian, I'm anti-government crackdown. Like, where was you guys during the Ferguson protest? Yeah, I was on Jimmy's show, and I spoke out against the COVID tyranny. But how many COVID activists was disappeared and killed? Like, I'm from Missouri, fan. Do you guys know what they did to the Ferguson protesters, the original activists, before they replaced them with DNC plants? I covered on this show multiple times. Original activists that started the Ferguson uprising against the police state was killed. Yeah. They was murdered, all in mysterious ways. And it's not me, just my crazy conspiracy theory saying this. I covered this many times. Officials, like news, like organizations, was like, "Yo, what's going on here? What's up with all these Ferguson protesters dying? Like suicide with 2 shots in the head. They getting murdered by the police."
Mm-hmm.
So
found in a car shot. Found in a car
this
shot.
Is what CJ is saying. I believe this is what I believe your point is. We stood against COVID tyranny. I was very public about it. I mean, I'm talking about, like, I went on big platforms like Jimmy and Glenn and me and others, and spoke out against this stuff, right? But the same white people believe that was the worst thing the government ever did, while supporting the government that was killing activists in Ferguson. Yes, they did some COVID tyranny bullshit, but show me the quote unquote anti-vaxxers that was killed by the government, like ours was. You know what I mean? But go ahead, CJ. I know that was the point I think you was getting, but I'll pass back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's continue a little more. Then I'm gonna switch up to some couple of other receipts here. I got like 3 more.
It was a compromise election cycle in November 2020. So Americans gathered at their own capital to appropriately air grievances and protests at their capital, but embedded amongst their number was an FBI asset that had been working from within their group online for many months. So this was the level of manipulative effort that the FBI invested into American citizenry and our assembly online to exercise our rights under the First Amendment, to talk to each other about whatever we want to talk about, including the insidious suppressions of COVID that we were suffering across the country.
Oh man, Jesus! Like, you making it hard to, like, me align with that. And I'm gonna pause this here because I do want to finish this Tucker part up. It is a longer interview, but I just want to get to this snippet part and then move to the next receipt I have here, because this is the part that is one of the most important points. How many FBI agents was actually on the ground on January 6th? Let's see.
Say that there were FBI assets in the crowd, in the building beforehand and certainly outside. What's the scale of this? Are you talking like 10, 20?
No. based upon some very conservative, but like hard investigative effort, evaluation of the numbers, from putting together eyewitnesses and videos and affidavit statement and whistleblower statements and court records that have been revealed through individual criminal cases where J6 defendants have been prosecuted and smart attorneys have forced admissions by the DOJ and the FBI, but those admissions have been sealed within the parameter of that criminal case by protective order by the judge, so I can't share them, but I've seen them. So real hard, objective, and conservative estimates would put the number of FBI assets in the crowd, outside, and working inside at well over 200.
200?
Yeah. Yeah.